Hello and welcome to Bob's Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all today, we have a couple of announcements. And the first one we announced last week, and that is our summer savings blowout sale. So right now you can come in and we have just tons of stuff marked down. Let me blow this up a little bit for you so you can see it better. But we have a lot of things marked down to 50% off. Bedding flats, hanging baskets, they're now half price and you can get them 2 for $13 and you can mix and match. We also have the Bob's Better Blooms plants, the 4.5-inch pots marked down. They were $25 a flat. Now they're $12.99 a flat or $1.99 a pot. That is a great deal. And of course, tomorrow is the last day to submit your entries for the June Yard of the Month contest. So I think we've got 4 or 5 people entered so far, so not a large group of people. So if you want to enter, be sure to send me a photo of your yard to ask@bobsmarket.com. And we'll enter you into the contest. And let's take a look now at the weather for the Mid-Ohio Valley. And right now it is blooming hot outside. And the forecast for this weekend, it's not much better. Tomorrow we're looking at a high around 96. The heat index is going to be up around 103. And I was reading online today, the record temperature for our area was 108, and it was set back during the Dust Bowl days during the Great Depression. But we might get close to that in the next few weeks. But Saturday, 96. Sunday, it's going to drop down a little bit cooler. There might be some storms moving through, and that's going to help cool it down a little bit. Not much. It's only going to drop it down to around 90. And still with the humidity, it's going to be like a sauna outside. And then moving on into Monday and Tuesday, it's going to remain hot with highs up around 90. And yep, that's pretty much the case for the rest of this upcoming week. So let's take a look now at some national weather maps. And this will kind of give you a better idea of the heat wave that we're experiencing right now. And you can see here on Saturday's forecast just this huge mass of hot air coming up from the south. And part of it is due to an El Nino effect that's going on right now. And if we take a look at Sunday, it's not going to be much better. It's still pretty hot. And those heat indexes, they're well up into the 100s. So definitely hot. And speaking of that, right now, we have heat warnings and heat advisories out all over our area. And, well, pretty much from all the way at our store down in Atlanta, all the way up to our location in Pittsburgh. We're under heat advisories. So what can you do in this heat? Well, some great, I can't talk. Some great heat safety tips. Drink plenty of fluids. Of course, take frequent breaks. Go inside where it's air conditioned if you can. And wear sunblock, of course. You know, it's sunny out. You don't want to get sunburnt. And if at all possible, just stay inside and take it easy. I know some of us have to get out there and work in the garden, but if you don't need to be out, stay in. And also, we need to keep an eye on our plants during this heat wave. So some great tips for taking care of your plants during a heat wave is, first of all, to water them in the morning. Now I know there's always a little bit of a little bit of controversy on whether you should water in morning or evening. Personally, I always water in the evening. But watering in the morning during a heat wave will help cool the plants off by evaporation. So as the temperatures heat up in the day, that water is going to evaporate and it will help cool the plants. And also, if it's possible to move some of your plants, like hanging baskets or containers or anything like that, if you can move them into a shady spot or an area where they get at least some shade during the day, that'll help nurse them through this heat. And it's also a great time to weed. So if you do want to be out working in this heat, now is the perfect time to weed your flower beds because, you pull up the weeds and the sun dries them out and kills them. And let's take a look at the allergy forecast. And I've got some great news. It's down around 4.1 on our scale from 0 up to 12. So, yeah, it's not too bad right now. It's kind of in the medium range. And our main pollen concern right now is grass pollen. And if we take a look at the map here, you can see the grass pollen, it's still pretty widespread over our area, but the levels are dropping down. So our main concerns right now are grass and also the weed pollen. It's still on the rise. Things like ragweed and other weed varieties that tend to bloom in, July into August and more into the fall. This week in our newsletter, I talked about preventing blossom end rot. And it's a common problem that affects many people, whether they're growing tomatoes, peppers, eggplant. All of those different plant varieties can be affected by blossom end rot. So, first of all, let's take a look at the symptoms, and you've probably seen it before. I know I've seen it in my garden. The main symptom is that a black, kind of brownish lesion starts to appear at the bottom of the fruit. It's where the blossom end would have been. And eventually it'll spread up through the fruit, and there's pretty much nothing you can do for it once it starts to appear. And a lot of times it'll happen with maybe the first fruit coming off of the vine. So it might be the first tomatoes of the season or the first peppers or, the first eggplants. And then later on you won't see it. But there are a few causes for blossom end rot and a couple ways to prevent it. So let's take a look at the causes. And the primary cause is a low concentration of calcium in the soil. Calcium's one of those compounds, it's actually, mineral that's needed for proper fruit production. And, it's one of those things that's essential to the plant. And if you have a low concentration of calcium in the soil, there's a couple things that kind of can add to that. And one of them is drought stress. So, if you have less water, that's less calcium that can be pulled up into the plant as it's bringing in water. And also, something else is rapid growth because of too much nitrogen fertilizers in the soil. You end up with a lot of green growth, and what that does is it kind of starves the fruit of calcium. So, the main concern that we have right now that's affecting a lot of people and maybe causing blossom end rot if you haven't seen it before or if you've only seen it sporadically, and that is the drought conditions. I mean, right now we are pretty much in the middle of an agricultural drought. It's not really a true drought because the water table is still at an acceptable level, It hasn't dropped down to drought levels yet. But as far as plant growers are concerned, it's a drought. So let's take a look at a couple of maps. And the first one is the Palmer Drought Severity Index. And you can look there if you live in southeast Ohio and up around the Parkersburg area. That area is highlighted that it's moderately dry right now. And I would say even that extends on down into our area in Mason and, across the river. The river there, it looks good on a map, but, what's happening on one side is probably happening on the other. And if we look at soil moisture, this is kind of the difference between an agricultural drought and the water table levels. So right now for our area, it's not showing really any deficit in soil moisture. But as far as growing is concerned, we are under drought conditions. So what can you do to prevent blossom end rot? One of the main things is to maintain the soil pH at around 6.5. And what that does is it helps with calcium uptake into the plant. And one of the main ways to do that is to lime your garden. By putting down lime, you're adding calcium to the soil. So it's going to do two things. It's going to help maintain that 6.5 pH, and it's also going to give your plants the calcium supply that they need. And the other thing has to do with our drought conditions, and that is mulching. You want to mulch around your tomato plants and your peppers, and that will help maintain the soil at a constant moisture. Prevent water that's there from evaporating, so that way you don't have big fluctuations in soil moisture content. So those are probably the two best tips that I can give you for blossom end rot. There are some spray applications that you can use once you see it that spray on calcium and it's supposed to be absorbed into the plant. But it's been my experience that those aren't really too effective. It's one of those too little, too late sort of situations. But hopefully those tips will help you out. And of course, you can find this information in our newsletter, and the best way to do that is to text BOBS, B-O-B-S, to the number 22828, and that will register you. And well, that is our show for this week, and you can find us here every week at 4 p.m. When the show is live, and then also you can watch it anytime after it's recorded on YouTube. So, I'll see you next week.